All right, let's jump right in. Whether you're a clinical leader, an executive shaping strategy, or an AI developer on the front lines, you're right in the middle of a massive transformation. We're here today to break down a really practical framework for navigating the incredibly complex, high-stakes world of AI in healthcare.
That quote really says it all, doesn't it? We're not just talking about algorithms and data here. We're talking about patient safety. We're talking about equity. And we are absolutely talking about trust. That's the weight of what we're dealing with. And it's exactly why having a solid governance framework isn't just a nice to have, it's an absolute must. So, here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this with a really clear why, what, and how structure. First, we'll dig into why this is so urgent. Then we'll cover what you need to know about the rules and the ethics. And finally, we'll get super practical with how you can actually build a structure and put it into action. Okay, first things first, let's establish the why. Before we build anything, we have to be grounded in the reality of where AI in medicine is today. That means understanding both its incredible promise and, of course, its very real risks. Now, just let this number sink in for a second. Over 1,000 AI-enabled medical devices have already been given the green light by the FDA. This isn't some far-off futuristic concept we're gearing up for. Nope, it is happening right now today in our clinics and our hospitals. And that's what makes the need for governance so immediate. So that's the urgency. Let's shift gears now to the what. To govern AI the right way, you've got to understand the complicated web of rules that are already out there. This is the foundational stuff every leader has to know. This chart does a great job of breaking down the three big regulatory pillars you're dealing with. In the US, you've got the FDA, which is all about device safety, and then HIPAA, which covers patient privacy. But then you look over at the EU's AI Act, and it classifies most healthcare AI as high risk. That's a huge deal because it means those tools are subject to the absolute toughest requirements. The big takeaway? You're navigating multiple, overlapping frameworks all at once. And I really want to zoom in on this one FDA concept, the total product life cycle. This is so important. This is not a one-and-done approval. The TPLC approach means you are on the hook for that AI system continuously, from the very first idea sketched on a napkin all the way through to how it's performing in the real world years down the line. It really demands constant vigilance. But let's be honest, regulations are only part of the story. The technology might be brand new, but our ethical duties to our patients, those are timeless. So the real heart of AI governance has to be built on that solid bedrock of medical ethics. The American Medical Association gives us this really powerful three-question test. And it starts with the most basic, fundamental question of all. Does the AI actually work? And we're not talking about marketing hype. We're talking about demanding, hard, objective proof, rigorous validation that it's safe and effective before it gets anywhere near a patient. Now, this is the critical next step. And it's where things get tricky. An algorithm that was validated on one group of people might completely fail or even cause harm to another. So you have to ask the tougher question. Does it work for the unique demographic, clinical, and social context of my patients? This is where the fight against algorithmic bias really begins. And here it is, the final test. The goal can't just be to make things a little more efficient or to have a flashy new tool to talk about. The ultimate measure, the real bottom line for any AI in healthcare, has to be this. Does it lead to clearly better clinical results for patients? If the answer is no, then we've got to seriously question its value. Okay, so how do we actually do something about bias? Well, this slide gives us a fantastic toolkit of practical strategies. It's about being deliberate every step of the way, from making sure your training data is actually diverse and representative, to using special fairness-aware algorithms, all the way to conducting health equity impact assessments before you deploy anything. These are real, actionable steps for any team. All right, we've covered the why, the urgency, and the what, the rules and ethics. Now it's time to get practical. Let's talk about the how. This is all about turning that theory into a real functioning structure in your organization. And the foundation of that structure is a multidisciplinary governance committee. And just look at this list. It's not just the tech folks and the lawyers. You absolutely need clinicians, ethicists, patient safety officers, and this is so critical, patient advocates sitting at that table. It's that diversity of perspective that gives you the comprehensive oversight you need. So what does this committee actually do? Well, here are its four main jobs. They're the ones who set the rules of the road. They decide which AI projects get prioritized based on real clinical value. They assess every single system for risk. and they draw the line in the sand, defining what needs to be governed. Basically, this is the team steering the ship. Now we get to the capstone of this whole framework, a super clear, phased-out blueprint you can literally follow to put all of this into action. This roadmap is great because it takes you all the way from day one to being an industry leader in 5 clear phases. You start by building your foundation, getting the committee and executive buy-in. Then you develop the actual framework and test it out in a controlled pilot. Once it's proven, you scale it up. And eventually, you're in a cycle of constantly optimizing and even leading the conversation. It just makes a massive undertaking feel structured and, honestly, achievable. So as we start to wrap this up, let's just reframe how we think about this. AI governance isn't some bureaucratic hurdle you have to jump over. It's the essential infrastructure that actually makes responsible innovation possible. This quote just hits the nail on the head. Good governance is what lets you move fast without breaking things, or in our world, without breaking the sacred trust we have with our patients and our clinicians. It's not overhead, it's a strategic asset. And so I'll just leave you with this one question to take back to your teams. When you get down to it, are you just building technology, or are you fundamentally in the business of building trust? Because in healthcare, you just can't have one without the other. This entire breakdown has been based on an incredibly thorough and practical framework put together by Dr. El-Mustafa Bouaten. If you want to go deeper on this, and I really think you should, I highly recommend you connect with him on LinkedIn to continue the conversation. Thanks so much for your time.